Okay, hi, welcome to, it's the free taster session of Snowdrop, and this is part of my Creative Embrace series, which is about art journaling for well-being, coming to use art as a meditation. So welcome. Thank you for those who have managed to get up on a Sunday morning and join me. And the recording will go out to those who haven't been able to kind of get here. So that's absolutely fine. No one's going to miss out. I was just saying with the emails, I'm hoping everyone's got the materials list, and I did the reflections page. So I've printed out a couple of things here, and I've got my affirmations. I think they're all really good at kind of self-reminders of staying positive and staying sort of calm and just remembering where we're at in a really kind of subtle and lovely, beautiful way. Colours. Let's get on with it, shall we? Colours. I have got, you can either use a black or a Payne's grey. I have got an indigo. If you are using a royal blue, a ultramarine, or a phthalo, like a darker blue, you could add a teeny tiny bit of black to it, and it will make it more of an indigo colour. That's the colour we're sort of aiming for. I have got, this is Hooker's green, which is a mid green. Okay, let me just make sure everyone's muted. That's it. Good. Excellent. Okie dokie. So, and then the brushes I'm using, I've just got a round brush, and I'm going to use a slightly thinner, it isn't a complete liner brush. It is a sort of in between of a liner brush and just a small sort of detail brush. So they're the ones I'm going to be using today. I've got pencil, I've got a pen. I tend to use a watercolour. No, I don't. I'm just getting confused with the letting people in. I'm using a waterproof pen. So my ink is colour fast. So I can write and I can carry on layering in my journal. I also use acrylic paints. But if you have got watercolour paints or gouache paints, that's fine too. Okay, just bear in mind with watercolour and gouache, they reactivate with water. The acrylics, kind of why I like using them, is once they're dry, they are dry and they aren't going to move, and you can layer over them really easily. Okay, so that's my sort of reasoning for the acrylics. Okie dokie. So I start off my practice of art journaling with a writing out. I don't know if anyone's ever done the Artist's Way, where they talk about, you have to do 3 pages every day. And it really is about sort of brain dumping, getting stuff out, putting it on the page, and then it's done. And you do it in the morning. Now, this I kind of feel is more, you can do that, for, absolutely. But also you can use sort of reflection. So hence I gave you, if you've got the workbook, some reflection notes, and it might be you can pick one of those. It might be you don't want to pick anything. That's absolutely fine. But the things I've put, it's like, and it's just a starting prompt to get you writing. This is to loosen you up, to let it all out. We are going to paint over it all. So it's your sketchbook or whatever you're using. So I have got what feels like is beginning or shifting for me. I ought to just point out as well, we're still in sort of the new moon energy, which is about sowing seeds and setting intentions. So if there's things that you kind of want to start, if there's projects you want to start, this is a really good time, ideally at the beginning of this week, but we're still in that kind of motion. So you could sort of start thinking about things that are coming up for you. You can write it out. It doesn't, it doesn't have to be deep or clever or, anything. Just, it could be just words. What else have I got? I have got oh, here we go. Where am I being invited to trust the process rather than rush? So that's another prompt. What quiet strengths have I developed that I have often overlooked? I think as women, we tend to be very good at overlooking our strengths, actually. What would gentle growth look like in my life right now? Okay, so there are no answers here, only observations. I invite you to write freely, let your thoughts wander, okay? Let the page hold whatever arises. So that's what I'm going to start with. We're going to write out. So I tend to write out on this page, and then I do my piece on this page. They are your art journals or your canvases or your paper, whatever you're working on. So you can do it any way you would like to do it. So I am going to just take me off. Right. Okay, and also if you want to put some gentle music in your background, please do. I don't, only because I put this onto YouTube and it doesn't let you, it doesn't like you having music. So this is my invitation. Write out anything that's coming up for you, anything that you might want to manifest or kind of bring in, anything that's bothering you. This is what we're going to do now. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. Oops, I'll get my page free. Just to write sort of freely, really. Okay. Whilst you're writing, I'm just going to let some people in. Whilst you're writing out, you if you've got a lot to say, then it is you can go on over your writing. So if you were writing on one page and you've got a lot to say, you've got a lot to let out, I would then go over my writing. So it becomes sort of, you can't read it. It doesn't matter. You're just letting that energy out, letting it flow out. Okay. So whilst you're carrying on, I'll just read out the snowdrop symbolism. Snowdrops are often seen at the first whispers of change. They bloom at the edge of winter when the world still feels cold and grey, carrying a quiet message of resilience, hope, and a gentle beginnings. They do not feel forced in their arrival. They emerge softly yet unmistakably. The snowdrop symbolism is often connected to renewal and fresh starts, inner strength and quiet bravery, hope during uncertain seasons, patience and trust in timing, soft transitions, and gentle growth. Snowdrop reminds us that growth does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it is subtle, sometimes it is slow. Sometimes it is simply the willingness to begin again. The day I was born, so a very long time ago, snowdrops came out. So my grandpa called me Snowdrop. And so they've always held a little special place in my heart. It's a little bit ironic because I was going out this morning into the garden thinking, let's go and pick. They've all gone. They've gone. I've got daffodils coming up. How about you? Oh dear. So, have we all finished our writing? I only did a little short kind of just to kind of get things started. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just set up the page that we're going to be painting on, are going to be our sort of image for the morning. And I did say you could use, so this pot would work. I just want to do a semicircle. You could use a pair of compasses or a mug, as long as it fits within your page. And I'm just going to carefully draw around that with my pencil. And then if you've got a ruler, lovely, you can do a nice straight line. If you haven't, you might have a slightly more wonky line, which is fine. And I'll join you in some wonkiness. I'm just going to put a little line there. I didn't sort of put these down as necessities because I don't want you to feel like you've got to go out, especially for a taster session, go out and get everything. And so it's really what you've just got about in the house. So that's my little frame that my painting is going to fit in. So I've just gently done that with a pencil. I'm now going to paint over this. We're going to have a little bit of a warm-up session, just to kind of get used to some of the shapes that you can use when we're painting the snowdrop. So first of all, I tend to use lighter colours. So I'm going to make I guess a sort of, add a bit of white, a bit of green, tiny bit of black, a bit more green. The whites in acrylics tend to be very opaque, so see-through. So they're really good for painting over, especially writing. The other thing I use a lot are stencils, so textured and patterned stencils. And they're just great for doing areas, nothing kind of strict or tight. It's about just kind of patchy and a little bit kind of covering up secrets. You could see them as seeds. I'm going to pop some white on there, so I'm covering up a bit more of that writing. It doesn't have to be all completely covered up. Let's add a bit of white and a bit of green. A little bit more black to that might go completely. No, there we go. That's all right. So I'm just, technical term, blobbing on. This is just to loosen up. This isn't about, as I said before, it's not about perfection. It's about coming to your pages in your art journal, finding some time for yourself. We're all busy and it's very hard to make time for ourselves. I think it's very important that we try to. So you can see I'm being quite patchy, not being a perfectionist at all. You can go right to the edge if you want to. You can come on over to the other page if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to. Might just add a bit more coverage. So you've got a sort of a bit of an abstract page. If you want to make it more pretty, you can do. As I said, they are your art journals, they're your pages. Okay, and then I have my roll of kitchen roll, and I just have it down the side, and I can just blot onto that. And then when it's over, I can just take the pages off. So apologies if this is loud, but I'm just going to dry my page. I've got a craft dryer, so it's meant to be quieter, but I don't know if it is. Or you can use a hairdryer. Don't worry if you haven't got a dryer. What we're going to do is we're going to start our background on in our arch, and then we're going to come back to doing just a few little kind of warm-ups with the brushes. So what we've got in the arch is a sort of ombre. So I start with a dark blue background. I'm going to paint the whole thing, and then we will paint our flowers over the top of it. So I'm starting with, I always wet my brush too, just blot it on the page. I'm going to go into my blue, okay, and I'm going to follow that line around the edge. And if it needs a little bit more movement, I can just add the tip of my brush to the water pot. I'm just going to carefully follow that line around. So I want it quite intense on the topper part. I might go over with a second layer of the paint. And then as I come down, I'm going to add a little bit more water to the paint. So as I pull it down, you're starting to get almost like a watercolour effect. And I'm just literally kind of swishing it around a bit, getting a nice sort of blend down. When I'm coming in with the brush, I'm not pressing hard, it's very light, so I'm almost using just the edge of my brush rather than the point, and just gently sort of massaging it down. I'm not pressing hard, and if it feels like it's running out of paint or drying up, you can just add a little bit more water. Whilst the acrylic's still wet, it'll keep activating and keep going, so you can sort of play with it a bit longer. So I'm coming down very approximately to half the page or half the arch, and I'm creating this kind of arc there. And then I'm going to make up this green. Let's have a little look. So I've got the bright green or the mid green. I'm using the hooker's green there. I'm going to add a tiny bit of black to it. I'm going to add quite a lot of white to it. And then just keep on going until you get the colour that you want. That's a bit green, maybe. And I'm going to paint the bottom part. So I'm going in with my point, following the bottom line, coming up. It's quite rich at the bottom, so I'm going to start adding some water, gently swirling into that paint. I'll wash my brush. So as it starts meeting the blue, add a bit of paint there. Oops, a bit too much, never mind. They start joining up. You could add just a little bit of white into that. Just move it around. So you've got this dark blue coming down into a light blue, and then you're meeting in the middle. So I come from the bottom with the richer area and start adding water to kind of create that sort of, let's call it an ombre, but a nice blend within the colour. I'm tempted to add just a little bit of white. I'll do it. just in case we're not happy with it. That's quite a lot of white. I'm just going to blend that in a bit more. And it's really for set a stage. Okay, so that we have our snowdrops being the protagonist, if you like, on our stage. And then if you need to kind of add a little bit more depth into that blue, don't forget we're going to be popping a moon in there. We'll put a crescent moon, but I kind of like feel like it's symbolizing the new moon. But I saw the moon last night, absolutely gorgeous crescent moon. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. You can add, it doesn't have to sort of be all even. And then I'm just gently rubbing that in like that. Just put a little bit of green going up to create a bit of a background there. Okay, so whilst that's drying, we're going to move to the other side of the page. So we've got our kind of, that's all done now. We're going to let that dry. That's our background all blocked in. Okay. So I think it's really good to do some warm up with your brushes, and it's just getting a feel for them, starting on a new day. So I'm going to use this page and I'm going to start off with little dashes, which may sound very boring, but the point of this is warming up your thin lines and your thick lines. So if I hold my brush, so I'm using my detail brush, so it's a bit smaller, it's almost a liner brush, not quite. And if I don't press very hard, I get lovely thin lines. I'm hoping it's quite clear on the screen. If I put a bit more weight on my brush and I press hard, I get much wider.
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but we can't see your picture.
The above their head?
I can only see you, actually. I can't see your picture at all.
You need to pin it. You're on speaker view.
How do I do that?
You should. This is what I said at the beginning. Sorry. If you've got, I've only got a Mac, so I don't know how it works on other.
On the camera.
So it's basically on my one, I've got three little dots on the right hand at the top of my screen, and if I pressed there, it should have you would go onto my over top. You press that, and then it will show up on your screen.
Hang on. Oh. I can see other people. Do you know how to do this, Darcy?
Hold on, snitches on. Just yes, ask us. It's better what to do is you get them
I don't know. I hope you work it out. Right. So I'm going to do the wide lines, just pressing a little bit harder, okay? And then I'm going to come back with the point of my brush and not putting any weight on my brush at all. And you get really lovely thin lines. thick lines. And then I'm just going to get you to go across your page, doing about 4 or 5 dashes down. And getting used to a thin and thick. So when you want a thin line, if you want to do create some highlight somewhere, you know that you can do that with using your brush. Also, this is really good for our nervous system, just this repetitive line as a pattern can calm us down, which sounds a bit strange if it's new to you. But it's like doodling, I suppose. So I'm just going to finish the end of this line here. Pressing very lightly, just the tip of my brush, and then thicker to get a wider line. So you're pressing down to get that thick line. Okay, and then I'm going to move to my middle brush. So I've kind of suggested getting 2 brushes. You've got your middle brush and your detail brush or your liner brush. And we're going to try and do some drops. We're not going to try, we're going to do them. So I'm going into my white. And let's see if it's going to work over the top of it. I'm just going to try and get it so you can see. Okay, so what I do is I've loaded my brush. It's got quite a lot of white on there. And I press, and as I come up, I'm lifting up my brush. So you get a sort of teardrop. So I press, come up very slowly, and sort of lift it off. So you get that teardrop. So we're going to be creating our petals by this motion. So again, you can go across, just getting used to that. So I press hard, if you like, sort of more pressure. As I come up, I'm lifting my brush so you get the thin end. So I'm going to do a little row of those, so thick, and then come up to the point, thin point, creating that teardrop just with the brush. And then when you stop sort of thinking too much about it, it'll come a little bit easier and you'll get into a bit of a rhythm with it. And as you start your second line, try doing slightly different thicknesses. So maybe slightly thinner, so not pressing so hard, and just trying to add a little bit of a curve. Don't worry if that's not happening right now, just concentrate on the straight drop. A little bit of a curve, straight drop. So whilst you're doing these warm-ups, you're also creating a repeat sort of pattern, plus creating that lovely calmness yourself. If you are holding your breath whilst you're concentrating, try and bring in a 4-4 breathing. So you inhale for 4 and exhale for 4. Just so quite slowly, not too slowly so you fall asleep, but just calms you down. But also it's very easy when we're doing these things, concentrating, to either hold your breath in at the top or not breathe So you're not, you know, you're holding your breath, but you know, on the exhale. Really common. I notice it in, we talk about it and have quite a laugh about it in our paint sessions in person. People realise they're just not breathing, which is quite serious, you know. You've got to breathe. Okay. So that's our sort of structure, if you like. Actually, we could just do let's do a how the leaves go as well. Let's do that. So I'm going to make a slightly brighter green. Let's bring in a bit of that green into my olive. It's not quite as bright, but a bit brighter. The leaves on the snowdrops, they're quite blunt. They're kind of curved at the top and sort of but blunt, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of doing the opposite to the petals. It's slightly longer, and I'm going to do a little curve. So I press down, pull down, and it's getting slightly thinner, not as thin, it's not a teardrop. And you can try different lengths. It's quite a thick one. They kind of curve very slightly. So you then could bring in some shorter ones just to get used to going different ways, to different curves. Just going to add a bit of water to mine. So when it does that, it's sort of running out. I'm just going to go back over it. So pressing a bit harder, coming down, long, 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 getting thinner and thinner. Okay. You can just do that line there. A minute to do that. Just a thought, actually, when you're if you are struggling still with the Zoom, I'm hoping you're not. But when I send the replay, it'll be literally just the overhead. Okay, so you can always sort of do a little catch up if you miss something. Okay. I'm going to make a start now on the actual picture itself. So I'm just going to come in at the bottom and create a little bit of a mound. So in a green that's different to your background green. So it might be that you just use more of the green colour, the like mid green. Just a little bit of a arch there. And that's where the sunflowers are going to, sunflowers, we're on snowdrops. So just also to mention that this is the sort of introduction to how I kind of work through my courses, and my upcoming membership will be in a similar vein. But we're doing Bloom, a creative embrace, starting on the 9th of March. So it's going to be 4 Monday nights of painting a different floral, again with their symbolism, and we'll have reflection. You would get similar workbooks. So I have put that in the meeting chat right at the very top. There's the the link if you want to have a little look. And there's a bit of a discount for today up until tomorrow, midnight tomorrow. So I just wanted to let you know, so that if you wanted to do more of this, then you can do. All good. I tend to do it on a Monday night. I like to start the online sessions at the beginning of the week. I think it's really nice. We've got the weekend out the way and we're going into our week. So that's sort of the reason why I tend to choose a Monday. It's also one of those nights that people tend to be, you know, at home. Not everyone, obviously, there's things going on. But yeah, that's that. Okay, so I've got my little green mound there. At any point you feel like the your paint is a bit wet, or you know, not dry enough, you can just put your dryer on it. Or as I say, if I'm going marching ahead, don't forget you'll have the replay. So you can always sort of check back in with that. I'm going to try and get that done for this afternoon. Right, so I've got my little mound, as I've mentioned 100 times. So now I'm going to place the stalks. I'm going to make more green. I'm going to put the green in there. I'm going to add a little bit of black. It's maybe really nice, deep sort of foresty green. And I'm aiming for 4 flowers. So very lightly, we're doing the light touch at the moment. 1 line. Second line. And I'm going to come over a little bit. Nice and thin. Third line. That a little bit taller, I think. Don't want to go too tall because don't forget we're going to put our moon in the sky in a moment. And then each one I'm just going to create a little bit of a arch like that. Don't forget, if it feels like it's not flowing, just add a little bit of water to your brush just to help the flow of the paint. Let's do another little arch. And off this first one, I'm going to create a little arch there. This middle one, I'm going to do a little arch there. At the tip of each one, I'm going to do like a little triangle bell, just on the end of each of those arches I've drawn in. Okay. And they tend to have this little bit where it all sort of splits open and have another little very thin blick. Like that. You can see that's very tiny, just coming off the stem. So as it comes up the straight part, so this is all in the kind of darker green for now. Make a bit more triangly these. Then I'm going to go along with those little leaves. So thick onto the stem. And they might be all different little heights, thick, and then it comes onto the stem, so it comes thinner. And they have quite a lot. When you look at the flowers when they come from the ground, have all those, oops, I need to my brush, leaves coming off. They're very sturdy, those leaves. They kind of create a little bit of a cluster around the base, so they kind of, you get a lot of leaves around the base. Put them in where you think. Again, I'm just going to add a little bit of white to that. I don't want bright white. I'm just going to add a little bit of white. I'm going to go down some of those leaves just at the very tip and the tops and pull down little bits of white that are mixed in with the green, and it just gives a little bit more depth into our leaves. We'll book up a little bit closer. You see, I'm just literally doing the very top. I can't see what I'm doing here. And it is mixed with the green, so it's not absolutely white. But it breaks up the blocking of those leaves. So we've got a dark green as the blocking in, and then adding a bit of a highlight. Same with the little velvet. I'm just going to put a little bit of a highlight on those, and then if you wanted to put a tiny bit on the stem, very top, imagine the moon shining down. There. Just add a tiny bit of yellow to another area, a bit of white, other area of the green I meant to say, just make it a little bit more zingy. And then I'm going to put some more flicks going into that mound. So a bit like the leaves of the snowdrop. Sorry, I can't do two things at once apparently. And just sort of creating this grass on the mound, a bit more texture, a bit more interesting. So I've got the background mid-green. I'm doing some green with a bit of yellow and a bit of white. And I'm going to go back over, add some of that dark green, just sort of popping that in between. Like that. I'm just going to give you a minute. Practicing some little quick grass-like strokes. It's a slow down version. Press, flick downwards. You're kind of lifting your brush off at the end. This is just a by the by whilst you're finishing off. Remember to keep hydrated as well. I'm just going to dry off my petals whilst you're still working on that. And if you're just going to wait for you to finish that little area, if you're thinking about sort of as we kind of when we finish the piece, we've still got a few bits to do, is thinking about maybe one of the affirmations that you'll want to add to the page. It could be something that's just personal to you, so you create your own, obviously, or I have just put some as ideas. And these can be painted in, they can be written in, or you can cut them out and collage. Let me get my... These are just from the last course we did. These are just pages. But you can sort of you can have a go at a bit of calligraphy, if that sort of, if you fancy that. You can write them on little tags and put them in that way. So you can really kind of build up your art journal. This is just a little, I've got some printing, so I've got loads of stamps, but this is a little printing set I've got. So that's kind of quite a nice way of doing it. It's just adding bits of difference, and also all these different ways of putting your affirmations in. You kind of remember them, they kind of stay with you. It's a little practice run of the Snowdrop. Okay, so that's up to you. So it's easy, it's very easy to kind of cut out your affirmation and stick it in, so you're kind of adding a little bit of collage. Okay, so we're going to now put our practice petals into the actual images. So don't worry if you go wrong, just let it, you know, you can always go over it and dry it or whatever. Try not to overthink it. I think as soon as you start concentrating it really hard, then that's when everything goes a bit pear-shaped, in my wisdom. Right, so I'm going into the white. I've got a tiny little bit of green on there, which is quite nice. I don't necessarily want it brilliant white, but if you've got it brilliant white, fabulous. So we could do it, when I was doing my practicing using the brush, you could put a centre one in. I'd be tempted to have a little bit of shadow on that, so a little bit of green mixed in with that, and then you could curve each petal around that, so you're kind of building it up. I don't know if you can see that very well. Probably still can't see it. Let's do it on the actual thing, then you can see it. So I'll do one with a bit of a centre. So I'm going to do the centre first. Okay, so it's quite dark. And you can use your round brush, or you might want to use, because this is quite, I'm working on an A5 art journal. So if you wanted to use something, if you want to use your other brush, depending on how big it is, it might be easier depending on sizes really. Let's try this. So a bit thicker, coming up to the little bell part. Just realised I've got my I'm just looking at the messages and realise how rubbish I am at looking at the chat. Yeah, so as I said, if you're, hopefully you're not struggling to see the picture now. I'll just hold it up just in case. So if this is on the recording, you're just going to see the top of my book, but I'm just showing that for now. But the recording, I will send you all the replay, so that if you want to go back, if I've gone too fast in areas for you, you can always kind of like go back to that area and look at it in more detail. And as I say, you will just have the overhead version. Okay. So apologies if you've been struggling with the Zoom. It's always fun and games with Zoom. I'll try and be organised, but yeah, I think the difficulty is that everybody has slightly different, obviously, sort of gadgets. Right, so I've gone a centre one there, slightly darker, and then I've gone either side with the white. That's quite thick, so if you want to thin it down, you can do. I might just do 2 little drops on that one. Don't have them too short. Oh, it's hard. Don't have them too short, don't have them too long. Don't. I'm just putting in a couple more. And if you want, you do get little areas where you get the, a bit too dark in there. Hold that up. I don't know if they're too long then or not. And then if you feel like they're not defined enough, you could just go with the very point of your detail brush, get a little bit of green, and you outline them as such, but you could bring in a bit of what would be deemed as shadow around the edges, just to create that depth. If you want to do more, you can do. They're your paintings. You could go back and redo this on a canvas or something if you wanted to. Just add a little bit more white. A few little highlights on the stems. That last round didn't pop enough, so just on those tips of those leaves, I'm just adding a little bit of pure white. So then you've got these 3 versions, and that creates your depth. Bit back of it, a bit bright. Okay, and then I'm going to put my crescent moon in. So you can do this in a handmade way. So I suggest putting like a back to front C, as in the letter, and then you pad it out so it gets a little bit wider. If you want more precision, you could use the bottom of something. So I could use that. Let's try it. Let's smudge it. You can either use your pencil. I don't usually use pencils. Should go straight in with the paint. So I've got my sort of lovely, I don't know if you can see that. Let's go over that with a white. So either hand done in a C, and if you want it more precise, you could just use a lid, or if you have got compasses, you could use that. You don't want to do the full circle, you just want to do a little bit of it. About 2/3 of it. So then I've got my point each end, and then as I go back, I'm just going to make a second layer in the center. Come back. You can make it larger if you wanted. I'm just going to keep it quite fine, I think. Just make sure I've gone over all the pencil. Okay. Excuse me. We'll just do a little watery area. Let me have a little bit paler. Going around the edge. It's going to frame it a little bit, I think. So then this is a little bit, this bit would be a more free for all. So depending on how you want to put your affirmation, if you want to use one of the affirmations, that is, don't feel obliged. Down here a little bit. page. I'm just going to create a bit of a frame around the frame. Now, this will be personal. You might just want to keep it like that, and that's absolutely fine. Or if you just want to make your life a little bit more difficult, you can give it a little bit of a frame. So I might just carefully allow a little bit of space between the picture, very carefully as I can, go around the outside. It does help to have a little bit of water on your brush with the paint, so it helps glide with a bit more flow. Move that up so you can see. I'm just going across that straight part. And your book doesn't have to stay still. You can move it around so that you're comfortable. Now I'm going to come down the other side. It's a little bit wibbly wobbly, but I think that adds charm. So you can keep it nice and simple. If you want to be more ornate, you can do. I mentioned I was a little bit of a magpie, so I'm going to get my gold. This is quite a fluid gold, so quite watery. It's not a firm one. And then I'm going to fill that gap. Not necessarily completely, but I'm just going to take the gold line around the edge and then decide whether or not I want to write my affirmation or if I want to use collage for my affirmation. Okay, quite subtle. I mean, you could do little teardrops going around the edge. If you wanted, to make it more decorative, little flowers. You could do little hearts like that. So that's two strokes coming together at the bottom. Quite cute. Maybe you might need some stars. I'm going to put some stars in mine. I call these my princess stars. So with the very tip of the brush, you want it quite watered down. I'll just do maybe three. I'm going to do a little spot in the middle. And I basically flick up, flick down, flick out, out, and then in the quarters a little bit shorter, so you get a little star. Very little, and I'm literally using the very tip of my brush to flick. It's quite nice. And that might be nice if you've used some gold. It might be nice to kind of do a really watered down version and put some in the sky once it's all dried. That might be quite pretty. That's getting into doodling territory. I'm just going to make a little blue watered down bit here, and I shall do some stars in the blue just so you can see them a bit bigger. So I put a dot in the middle, flick up, flick down, side to side, and then in the quarters there. So that's my star. So you can just do it a little bit smaller. But I'm always coming from the centre out. Okay. There's quite a lot there. So I'll just give you a few moments. I'm going to have a little think about what affirmation I'm going to use. And I think what I'll do is I'll do it as a collage, which you do need either. You can tear, but you can, scissors are good. And then some glue. I mean, I just use the Pritt stick type glues. You could use PVA watered down. Which one should I use? There we go. I'm going to use this one. So I'm shopping up my notebook. Mine is I trust the small shifts. I honour the slow unfurlings. Immediately think of ferns at the point. And you see those slow motion films of ferns and the unfurling of the leaves. I'm just chopping it out. You can put those in a folder for another time. Actually, not the scissors. So you could literally stick that in like that, just or you could cut out the letters or sections. So I'm going to do that, I think. And you can do it on the page here, or you could do it on the opposite page. I might do them in 3 lines. Just small shifts. Okay. quite simple, and that's a page in my art journal. So I'm just going to give you a few moments. And what we normally do is that I would normally, so I will do this, but just this for the recording. I normally stop the recording once we finish the painting, and then it gives an opportunity for everybody who's on the call to share if they want to share their work. And we can all see what everyone's been up to, which is really lovely because everyone's will be slightly different. They'll have a slightly different take. And also it's something that you can come back to. You don't have to just think, like, that's it, that page done. If you want to make more of this and you want to do a larger version, you can do it on a piece, you know, on a canvas or whatever, to make something that's going to be more prominent. And whilst you're finishing, I'll just the little ideas I tend to do. So I kind of, I hope, you know, if you have a word of the year, so I had flourish for this year, and I make these little cards just on board. And I do a sort of similar version to this. So I kind of do some writing about it, and then I work out how I'm going to, what I'm going to do. So, and then I put that on a little stand. So I have it on my desk, and it just reminds me. This is my little, this my sketchbook that I started doing, and it's already falling apart. So these are just personal works, not sort of ones I've been doing. This became something in my funk easel, and we also did in Creative Embrace 1. This is an interesting piece. So I'm starting a membership called Bloom. Date isn't set, it's going to be April, May beginning, but this has become my logo. So out of this have birthed the logo, if you like. Yes, and then this one's mid works about fragmentations. So that's that. Okay, let's have a quick check on the time. Oh, we're good. So what I'm going to do is I am going to stop the recording. I hope you've enjoyed the recording. The beauty of the recording is that you can stop and start. So if I'm going too fast, you can pause it and come back to it. You don't have to do it in one go. You can have a rethink. You might not want to cut these out. You might want to write them. So there's lots of different ways that you can sort of personalize these and make them your own. But thank you for joining me. And for those who are on with me now, I'm going to say, I'm going to stop the recording, and then I shall put the gallery on. So if you want to share, that's lovely. If you want to have a word, that's also lovely. So thank you very much.